欢迎来到下午3点10分，这是 R0的 track。那标题是 Post AI。这一场呢，主持人又是我是 GD。那再次非常荣幸的邀请到，同样跟今天早上的这个 keynote speaker 这个 Costin 是同一个团队，这个卡巴斯基前 Great 团队的这个 Vitaly。那 Vitaly 他已经不是第一次来 HackerCon 了，他来过非常多次演讲。那我个人印象非常深刻的一次是，他曾经用 Yara Rule 的 scanner 写过一场投影片，在6、7年前的 HackerCon。然后我那时候才知道，原来 PowerPoint 之外可以用 Yara scanner 来做 slide deck。那Vitaly 除了在这个 APT 方面有非常多的研究在部落格上发表之外，他同时也是这个 INTERPOL 这个国际刑警组织的顾问。那同时也是非常多这个不同 conference， 几乎所有各大 conference 它都有不同的这个内容分享过。今天这个 Post AI 这一场要讨论的是我们现在有很多 AI 的技术之后会对 cybersecurity 带来什么样的影响？那让我们用热烈的掌声欢迎 Vitaly。
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vitaly Kamluk, and I'm here to talk about Post AI. And I used AI buzzword here. Maybe you have thought that, well, there's going to be another, kind of bullshit talk about AI. People abusing the term just because it's a popular buzzword. I'm going to disappoint you. In fact, I am nobody to talk about AI. Literally, I am a threat intelligence researcher, malware reverser, and it is not my domain. However, I've spent 20 years working in the field where I had to make forecasts and predictions. So I kind of developed and trained this skill to see the future, to observe the trends, and then try and guess what is coming next. And of course, just like many of you, AI bothers me too. So I wanted to share some thoughts that I had. Maybe it will give food to your thoughts, and then maybe we'll be altogether better prepared for the future. So, since I'm nobody to talk about AI, I promise that after my introduction, you will not hear AI from me. Now, the introduction. Why are we talking about this topic? Well, apparently, in the future, and already now, we cannot hide from AI. It's just everywhere. It's clear and obvious to everyone in mobile devices, in the cloud, in the services, it's everywhere. We go to a forest, there will be some sort of AI in the future. It is also one of disruptive technologies. Disruptive means it starts from tiny, simple steps. And in a fraction of a second, it's just everywhere. It's all around us, it's embedded everywhere, it's explosive by nature. This technology is just replicated, it's picked up by the market, it's multiplied, scaled, and it's everywhere. Clearly, it is one of these technologies. It is also the technology that splits society in two camps. So we are already being split into believers and skeptics. Skeptics think, and I met such people, they say, this is just a very smart predictive input technology. Think about like autocorrect on steroids that just predicts what you want to say next and then continues your sentence. The believers actually go as far as saying that AI is a total new species. We created a new life form, just a digital one. So there are these two camps of people, and the world is getting polarized. Well, regardless of the camp where you belong, it is clearly the future. It's inevitable that it will be everywhere. This is why we are talking about this. And I think, and after this slide, I will not use artificial intelligence anymore as a term, because I think that in the future there will be no artificial intelligence. Instead, we will have computational or computed intelligence. For a simple reason, artificial is the term that doesn't really stand. It is bad for marketing too. People do not like artificial things. They like things that are natural, original, and I think it just really will be at some point renamed to something better. Maybe it will not be computational or computed, it will be something else, but it will be a different term in the future. Still, we will need to have different classes of intelligence. So computed intelligence here is similar. It is computational in nature, but it's more like pre-computed and immutable, unchangeable in a way. And you will understand the difference throughout the slides. Of course, there will remain biological intelligence that belongs to humans, natural. And I also think that there will be a hybrid intelligence, a mix of two in the future. Now, let's talk about the future and technologies to come. What do you think made human intelligence standing out from the animal world? There's a very nice explanation to that, and ideas hinting what made humans different at the very early age where intelligence was born. It's shown in Stanley Kubrick's Space Odyssey movie intro, and he made it in 1968, just for a second. So what made humans different, he hinted here in this episode where you see a human-like ape discovers a tool that it can use to kill animals, to defeat its enemies, and use it everywhere. So I think it is actually our ability to use tools to enhance our body and mind that actually ignited the brain evolution, the mind evolution. And this was a differentiator. And we started building tools like crazy. We built and improved them over time. We passed it from generation to generation. And at some point, they started extending our bodies and mind. I've seen interesting research by neuroscientists saying that our brain responds to external objects and tools, like, for instance, car in this case, as an extension to our own body. So our mind behaves when you control the car, when you drive and control the steering wheel. Your brain perceives the perimeter of the car as your own body, so you avoid obstacles, not because you mentally calculate the distance to the obstacles, but because you naturally feel that you need to do this movement in order to avoid collision of your body with external object. So mind processes our tools that we created as an extension of our body. And of course, we started sharing these tools with others, and that helped us to evolve as a civilization. Now, let's turn back to computational intelligence, because it is also a tool that we've built, a tool to extend our mind, our memories, our mental abilities, our knowledge. It empowers our minds, clearly. At the same time, most likely this is type of the tool that can build tools on its own. And it's not just equipment that produces tools for humans. It is a tool that can produce tools for non-humans as well. And what does it mean? When a new thing, intelligent thing, started producing tools, discovering tools to extend its own abilities, we go back to Stanley Kubrick's opening of Space Odyssey, and maybe this will be the moment when the new species will be born. But for now, computational intelligence still working in confined environment, in a jail, an environment where it cannot escape, and it is stateless in a way. It is merely an assistant to humans. It is maybe semi-stateful in some cases. You probably have tried ChatGPT. You can have sessions, you can restore them and continue. So there is some sort of semi-stateful mode, right? But it is not really evolving. It's not changing itself generation after generation. It is limited and quite narrow-sighted. It's specialized. We can let it focus on a specific field. Now, in the future, of course, there will be open systems, or there may be jailbreaks as well, where computational intelligence will be put in an open environment where it can become stateful, evolutionary system. It will definitely have different meaning of time, because machines, unlike us, they process time differently. We process time and perceive time in quants of time, be it seconds, minutes, hours, days, years, right? Lives. Machines, they kind of perceive, or what means to them is cycles, CPU cycles. And this is something that can be scaled up very fast by attaching more power. And this is why the evolution process will be not time dependent, but it will be explosive in nature. Just by providing more power, you kind of speed up time. Imagine that humans could evolve much faster by having a little bit more computing power. For us, it is not accessible, but for computational intelligence, it is. Now, for every new technology in the beginning, there is a problem of scale. And there is a great article about this, thoughts in comparison to the transistor radio technology from the 1950s, made by a friend of mine, Jeremy Wagstaff. He's a former Wall Street Journal, BBC, and Reuters journalist. He's running his own blog where he shares these thoughts publicly about the technology that is coming. And he made this comparison to transistor radio that used to be also a kind of disruptive technology. It started large. It was, the radio started large. It was expensive and accessible only to a few. It was bulky, non-portable radio as a technology, the first radio stations and transistors. But then with the transistor radio, it miniaturized the tech. It became more accessible and portable. And the same will happen to LLMs, like we've seen, the large language models, right? Some of you might have heard of idea of small language models that are more specialized, because sometimes we don't need, let's say, an intelligent assistant that knows everything and read all the books. We only need a narrow, specific assistant in the field that we are working on. So I don't want, perhaps, ChatGPT to tell me or know even about, let's say, War and Peace by Lev Tolstoy when I, let's say, focus on coding in C++ or Python. So there will be specialized, smaller, more affordable, cheaper, more portable language models. And there will be tiny language models for embedded systems, for edge computing. These things will make it more accessible and more portable. Now, there's another problem of hallucination that many of you are aware of. These things hallucinate. And it is a really problem for different professions. For example, we take jurisprudence, which is based on strict facts and strict documentation. So for non-creative jobs in general, it will be a big problem, because non-creative jobs, they are not allowed to come up with new things and imagine new things. They have to refer to existing order, to existing stack of documents and laws and policies, for example. So fake facts and disinformation will completely destroy the profession. Fabricated references, misinformation, of course, it is damaging. But for others, it is not really a problem. It is a gift. So other professions will perceive hallucination as a gift, and that is, of course, about creative artistic roles. It may also be useful as an incubator of ideas, helping us to find new solutions even to old problems. And the best part is that we can control the randomness of thoughts, how far it flies to generate something new. So it can be really a gift if it's used in the right context, not a problem. Now let's think about other problems that the technology brings. And I actually came with an experiment here. First, let me explain. The problem of bias accumulation. At some point, people will generate more and more content with the help of computational intelligence. We will produce pictures, videos, like in this presentation, almost 100% of these videos were made by machine. And at some point, we'll reach the point of bifurcation where machine produces more content than humans. Just imagine what happens next. That content will be harvested by the data harvesters that are collecting data online, and that will be fed into the training infrastructure, and it will train next generation machines, next generation computational intelligence. These will mean pollution, kind of a feedback, endless feedback loop, potentially, for the training infrastructure. And where does it go? If you repeat this, rinse and repeat this again and again, you will have very concentrated, very crystallized traits, biases accumulated and distorting, and it will lead to a disaster. And I wanted to show you visually how it leads to a disaster here by running this demo. Well, you'll see the crisis of the amplified biases. So what I did for the experiment is I took a photo, just a still image, of these three friends laughing here in front of the camera. And then I asked the machine to make a video from this, and it produced a video. And if you used such services before, like Runway ML, for example, or some others, they normally limit you by 5 or 10 minutes, seconds only. You cannot produce longer videos. You cannot produce like full-length movie yet. And why do they do this? It's not just because it's expensive, because you can repeat again and again, but still they produce 5, 10 seconds. Because after this, they can no longer control this bias accumulation, and it may lead to very unbeautiful thing. So if you're sensitive to graphic content, I suggest not to skip this slide, please. But I'm going to show you the demo anyway, how these biases are accumulated. So what I did, again, still image, 10 seconds video, and then I took the last frame from 10 seconds video and fed it in the system again and said, please extend another 10 seconds. And took the last second again, and then asked, please extend it again. So let's see where it goes. People were just laughing, and then it produces nice video, 10 seconds of friends laughing and a little sun appearing. But now, look carefully. It will start to change. So first, this bias accumulation, the biases are reflecting like on different entities here. So we have 3 people. So there will be traits of one transferred to the other. For example, here, you can see that the color of skin of ladies started changing on their hands. It got darker because I think it's transferred from the darker skinned guy on the right. And now they will start even mimicking and copying movements of each other. And as you see, as time goes, you can see that traits and features, facial features, skin features, body features of these people getting more and more kind of biased and distorted because you add a little bit of fine line here and there. You get a little bit more suntan, so the skin gets darker and darker and darker, and it eventually, of course, leads to a terrible state. You see how they copy movements of one another, holding their fists, and they even dressed in the same jeans, which was not in the original photo. Of course, it was not visible at all. So now things get really, really ugly and scary. It goes insane, right? Within 1 minute, this bias accumulation leads you to insanity. So at some point, I had to stop. I didn't want to continue because I don't want to see how it ends. But yeah, you can obviously see that this is an ugly and terrible thing we don't want to have. And by producing content and posting this online, this bias accumulation is inevitable. Even with fraction of content that is accessible to AI, it already kind of poisons the well. It contaminates the training data source. So yeah, this is where it leads, unless we solve the problem of accumulated biases. I'll just let it roll. Yeah, this is the beginning, how it started. Now, moving on. I think that computational intelligence will enter the physical world, and it already has. Well, we've seen, the specialized hardware and chips that just speed up the boost computational for the models, for the math behind this. It's already kind of entering physical world, but it will go more deeper. I think at some point, the neural networks that we have virtually existing as models will get printed in the physical models. So they will be converted from virtual to physical. Why? Because, well, first of all, imagine a tiny damage to a chip, computational chip, completely destroys the whole computational process. Our neural networks, biological ones, are designed in a way that if some brain cell dies, it is not affecting the overall functionality of the brain. It continues running. So making it physical, make it more resilient to potential hardware failures. Also, it will utilize a real parallelism, and you will not need to have a fraction of time for computing, but it may actually use the whole vast network that is kind of a replica of a biological neural network. So I think we will see hardware versions of successful models being printed, maybe on demand with a 3D printing. Next, brain-machine interface. I think that this great attention to computational intelligence and a lot of bigger budgets, of course, and big corporations will pour money into another adjacent field, which is neuroscience. And, well, this will be also revolutionary, and it will be connected. I'm sure that some of you have heard of the company called Neuralink, and it's popular mainly because of the founder, Elon Musk, starting the business. And it's focusing on producing invasive technology, kind of way to interface with human brain. So they did first on animals, now they're experimenting on humans. They are connecting to neural network of the brain on the physical level. But you think that this is just a pioneer. No, there are many others, in fact, that do exactly the same thing. They are playing with invasive neural implants connecting to the brain neural network. And at some point, we'll reach a good throughput, and there will be a reliable interface connecting the brain to a machine, potentially opening a possibility of transmitting thoughts through a network into other people's brain, opening telepathy. And which opportunities does it bring in connection to computational intelligence? Well, imagine this, sleep state training. You go to bed, instead of seeing some silly, random dreams that just reflect your fears, your desires, or your experience from the past, you can potentially control the dream and make it educative. You can learn something overnight, just because you use time for training instead of just seeing random information generated by the brain itself. Another thing is like this episode from The Matrix where Neo asks, like, can you operate this thing? Trinity says, not yet. Magical moment when a new knowledge is being accessed by your brain, it's being uploaded in a way. Of course, it's just a Hollywood movie, but the idea is there. The memory extension. All of a sudden, she knows how to operate a helicopter, and she says, let's go. So it will probably be not like in the movie. It will be more like querying a database, like you concentrate on something, and all of a sudden, a memory comes up from your brain, something that you have not experienced in your life, but you feel that you're familiar with this. It's kind of a new domain, but you know what it is, and you know how it works. It's not going to be the same as just training, more like extension of the facts and memories. Another opportunity that it opens is hallucinations. Now, the obvious way, of course, and people will definitely find a way to abuse that, things like neurodrugs, where it's not based on substances that affect your brain state, but they produce artificial hallucinations that your brain just perceives, and they are so interesting and so addictive that it becomes a drug. And as every drug, it reshapes and transforms the brain. It damages the brain just because of the nature of repetitive process and addiction to the process. So most likely in the future, it will be illegal to produce such drugs. But there will be a legitimate way to use such things, for example, for crisis simulation training, where people need to actually be forcibly put into conditions when it is a crisis. It's a catastrophe, it's a disaster, it's maybe a plane crash and something like that, and respond in such conditions. So by making it a hallucination, it is safe for their bodies, for their state, but they can actually train and learn how to survive in such critical conditions. Well, there are other lighter opportunities like recreation and potential brain wellness. And if you want something really crazy, because maybe that was not crazy before that, think about this opportunity. Augmented neural reality. A new type of display that it's a sort of a virtual 3D canvas, something that you perceive, it is there, like the whole audience here may see something on the stage which is not, just because maybe we are all connected to the same source and our brain perceives that the object is there. Maybe through a connection to our visual cortex, maybe through a connection to the right part of the brain, kind of printing this in the space while physically it is not there, projecting it from virtual to physical. And, well, that also means retirement of classical computer or traditional computer interfaces. So we will no longer need keyboards, mouses, displays, Everything may be actually in our brain, so we could have input and output just within our thoughts. Another thing that comes, I think, will be brain afterlife. If we, think about this, when a man dies, when a human dies, is it when the heart stops or when the brain dies? Apparently, there are ways to restart a heart, right? But there's almost no ways to restart a brain after it dies. But if we nourish the brain and we connect it to the human-machine interface, we can actually let it live longer. And I think it's just a matter of time until people come up with such a technology. So it will help keeping brains, valuable brains, alive after the body is dead. It will be expensive. It will be available only to a few. Most likely, it will be condemned by religion because it's some sort of a nonsense, a life after death. But it will help people preserve talents. It will boost human progress, of course. Imagine that some of those scientists, like Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton, that was mentioned by Kostin earlier, would be alive now and could produce more work. There will be problems of brain afterlife as well. So what are those problems? First, limited capacity. Everybody would like to live forever, right? But of course, it will be so expensive that it will be accessible only to a few. But another problem will be how to motivate a brain to continue living. Now, in our own bodies, we enjoy taste of food, music, kind of pleasures that are coming from the physical world. When you are virtualized, when you only perceive things mentally, it will be hard to motivate humans to continue living. It will be a big crisis of human motivation. And of course, a right for euthanasia, self-termination will reappear, like philosophical problem. Is this even the thing to be allowed? Some countries do allow this, some not. But it will come back. Now, what social impact will technologies have? Of course, it will affect jobs. And humanity, over time, markets demanded more and more labor force. Civilization demanded more workers. But on the other hand, computational intelligence reduces this demand, clearly. There are many people that are concerned about what will happen to my job. Am I safe? Or machines will replace me. And since people split into believers and skeptics, well, there will be different consequences to both. It will be definitely a tough competition. And believers, I think, who embrace and use new technologies, they will achieve more, faster, they will be empowered with new abilities, and they will create things cheaper, they will create things at scale. And many people will be satisfied, they will be happy with these cheap synthetic products, rapidly, instantly available. But skeptics at first will lose their jobs, they will suffer. They will probably turn to craftsmanship, producing things on their own, refusing mass production and synthetic products. They will prefer human-made products over synthetic ones. And at the same point, the irony is they will most likely be the most valuable contributors to create human-made original content to train the next generation of computational intelligence. So they probably will be well paid at some point, and there will be a smaller group for sure, but well paid. Well, the technology will also be used for propaganda and deception. And this is quite obvious. It's already used now in many naive ways, such as deep fakes and disinformation. This is going on. Everybody has seen examples of deep fakes and crafted articles that are fake. And advanced way, of course, would be to do it indirectly so that it's harder to discover and harder to prove. Imagine about trying and create kind of proxied fake news by influencing the influencers that control the crowd. So they are humans who spread it. They are super spreaders in a way, but they have to be influenced through targeted deepfakes and targeted disinformation. And there will be a concept of influencers herding. And of course, it will raise the problem of ethics, like how computational intelligence can be used or not, and it will polarize the world again. Everybody will have different definition. What is accessible? What is normal? What is okay? What is not? And it will reflect, of course, political interests and propaganda of the state. Every state has own agenda that they want to push. And there will be an interesting concept of brainwashed computational intelligence. When you speak to a machine, it will believe into things that you think have nothing in common with reality, and nonsense things. So this phenomena is to come. Some more daring ideas for you from the future. How about a government advisor or a member of parliament as a computational intelligence? At some point we'll be there, I think, and people will hear an alternative view from computational intelligence that is super trained and super knowledgeable. It's just a matter of time. Some other daring ideas, think about automating, hunting child abusers with a machine. But it brings also new dilemmas. For example, like how do you retire such a system? Because it must be stateful, it must have memory. And by creating such machines, you basically produce other maniacs and other abusers, and it can get out of control. So keeping that in jail makes it ineffective. Keeping it outside of the jail creates a danger of more abuse. Another thing is, think about butterfly effect. If you remember the concept, kind of tiny manipulation of simple things that eventually altogether lead to a desired effect, a macro effect. From the micro changes, micro events, and micro input, you generate macro output, such as a desired one can be stock market manipulation. So you need to throw in certain facts and certain ideas, do certain actions that are unrelated to the stock markets, and it may actually cause, let's say, a chain reaction and a chain of events that leads to desired produced effect on the market. Thinking more globally, I remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal from 2018, when the company ingested a lot of people profiles, preferences, and social media data, and then managed to create and craft like targeted ads to manipulate and kind of alter the election process. Well, if you can reliably kind of simulate human or human behavior, you can scale it to different profiles, and you can have sort of a societal, global society simulation, a model which you fine-tune, and it will act as you define. And this way, you can try and influence elections, you can even start revolutions and riots, instigate military conflicts between two third-party countries, potentially, by knowing like what input is required to lead to certain action, similar to the butterfly effect, but that comes to more society and country-level manipulation. It will have also individual impact on individual humans. It will increase the human solitude, the feeling of loneliness, because of multiple virtual assistants and potential virtual partners replacing humans. People will dislike talking to humans that are flawed, that are not as good as their virtual assistants. So it will definitely have implications on individuals, and it will be tough to compete with them. And also, something that I observed this year, something I prefer to call the computational intelligence skill print. I'll tell you a story. I had an interview with a candidate, job candidate, this year, and as I was talking to the guy, I felt like I was speaking to ChatGPT. It was a video call, but all responses were like ChatGPT produced. Because I deal a lot with ChatGPT, and I know this vocabulary, turns of speech, like very specific and logic, and it was like the flow of the text that would be produced if I entered and communicated with the machine. And at some point I wasn't sure, was I talking to a machine or to a human? But there was a video stream and like a perfect lip sync and everything. And I asked the guy, are you using some sort of computer assistant to talk to me? And he was not English native speaker. And he said, no, but I use ChatGPT every day to improve my English when I drive a car. So I speak to ChatGPT using voice. And every single day I do this, and this is how my English improved over time. And this is where I realized that by using this machine trainers, it actually deforms your brain in a way that you start repeating the same patterns, the same logic, the same vocabulary, and it gets polluted. And I had like really strong impression that it was a machine. And this probably will come in the future too. scaled for many of us who start talking to machines more. It will introduce also false beliefs and biases and false references just because we at some point start talking to machines more. Now, how does it affect our field of cybersecurity? First, software coding. So all the previous slides, I wanted to bring us all here to talk about cybersecurity, really, just to be on the same page. That's why I started afar. So software coding, hallucination problem. For hallucinating computational intelligence or co-developers. If some of you used GitHub Copilot, that's a good example, you know that it sometimes makes up API calls, for instance, just invents them. They don't exist in the documentation, but they look pretty much realistic. It produces sometimes semi-working code. And of course, computational intelligence will reproduce human errors based on the training data set. And there is never a perfect code made by humans. There is always a flaw. It is very rare to find a perfect code. And it will by nature have explosive impact. Why? Because once in the training data set, once the model becomes popular and used by many, many developers, it will spread everywhere. Just like a library, same library, like let's say libSSL or something like that, right? But the difference is that the bug in the library is fixable once and for all. In the model, if you fix it, it's already integrated in the different code bases. And it will be really hard to remove it back because it's not the same as updating and releasing a new version that is not flawed. It's already part of many different code bases. Yeah, it's a bigger damage. And I think that the next generation human coders, they will have some sort of a feature of a microscope coding. They will not focus on the global scale. They will focus on producing working code. They will be kind of creating bits and pieces that work together. They will not be able to comprehend the complexity of the system they are creating. So they will be blind to high-level flows. In vulnerability research, the arms race will continue. And I think that the mainstream vulnerabilities will be effectively stopped by computational intelligence, especially trained for that. But the crown jewels for the vulnerability researchers will be to find non-mainstream vulnerabilities that are new classes, new types of bugs, fundamentally new. Or maybe ways to exploit the validators based on computational intelligence, because they will also have flaws and you will be able to obfuscate and hide in the computational intelligence assisted search. People will have, for sure, need for determinism of systems. Why? Because things will fail and will lead to disaster and potential human life loss. So there will be need to assist postmortem analysis through reversible structure of computational intelligence, reproducible conditions, recorded inputs, and random seed preservation to be able to repeat the whole process and understand what led to a disaster, to the wrong decision. Of course, it will be driven by market crisis and crashes, of course. Government policies, they will just reinforce this. Determinism will be probably one of the policies for some countries. They will have monopoly to use computational intelligence for offense on the battlefield. They will also introduce very simple policy for computational intelligence to pass the Turing test. The Turing test of the future will be as simple as asking the machine, are you a machine? And the machine will always say, yes, I am a machine. They will never be allowed to say that, no, I am human. It will be a policy, at least. The violators will be outlawed. And of course, import-export control to make sure that you are not using somebody else's propaganda-affected system. Supply chain attacks will still be relevant, mainly, well, will be insider or remote attacks, but in nature they will try to temper or hide training data sets to produce desirable results. They may steal trained models. They also may temper or override models to embed certain secret triggers. One of the things is enabling models. Imagine the same benign assistant, but having a power to execute dangerous things. For example, attaching a Python interpreter to ChatGPT right now may lead to jailbreak and infection of the whole IT infrastructure, just by letting the LLM run certain code on demand. And I've seen interesting researchers in this area already. At Black Hat this year, people are working on this and showing proof of concept. Now, there will be new cybersecurity jobs. There will be computational intelligence trainers, humans that will be required to teach computational intelligence how to do security right. There will be those who will deceive the machines, do the social engineering with machines, the vulnerability research to do the jailbreaks on demand, and then there will be a set of investigators. And this is very closely connected to the threat intelligence domain where I come from. Investigating attempts to espionage with the help of machines, investigate data poisoning in the training data sets, detect psychological operations, influence operations through poisoning or tempering the model, bug injection that may lead to undesired effects through a special trigger. And this trigger had to be discovered through reverse engineering of the model and proven that this was exactly the event and input that led to a problem. The trigger recovery will be one of the problems solved by these analysts. In conclusion, in summary, I'd like to say that the future is definitely full of exciting tech. In my predictions, in my career, I made predictions that were not always right, only to find that it was just not the right time when they happened. The event occurred a little bit later. So I cannot tell you when these things will come, but they're definitely somewhere on the horizon. I think that flows will shift to macro design complexities in the future. So we must all embrace computational intelligence now, make it a part of our day job, and don't waste time on memorizing things because our memories and our experiences can be extended in the future. What we need to do is to train and adapt, validate and use new knowledge from the new domains that we attach to. And I also think that now is the golden age for AI abuse because people, the victims, potential victims, are not prepared for all the threats that are coming from, the machine intelligence. And there will be a lot of abusers, but also it is a lot of opportunities for defenders. So please do not ignore this time. And if you want one thing that comes after in the post-AI era, the next big thing will be human intelligence. So stay smart. Thank you very much.
好，那非常感谢这个讲师带来精彩演讲。我们还有一点 Q&A 的时间，有没有任何问题？那如果没有的话，那我们就再次后面有是不是？不好意思，你可以压前面的那个麦克风吗？对 ，One Q&A。
Mr. Kamluk, thank you for your speech, and it's very intriguing. I would like to ask about the believers, and you said the skeptics you have mentioned in the previous speech. You said that the human society will be divided into skeptic believers and people who use artificial intelligence and those who integrate themselves with computational intelligence, such as cyborgs. So it seems to me that some hierarchy will be formed in the near future. And do you think this is inevitable for an advanced civilization? And do we have to actively avoid this thing from happening? Thank you.
Sorry, if I understood right, is it inevitably leading to the end of civilization, I think? I'm not that pessimistic, to be honest. I think people will adapt, for sure. Well, there will be split. There was always, different opinions. There are camps based on, political views, religious views, other preferences, right? There will be the same thing. People will embrace computational intelligence. People will just deny and will completely ignore it. So, yeah, what will happen to them? I already described in these slides. So some will suffer, some will benefit from this. But I don't think that inevitably means the end of humanity, no. I think that we will cope with any troubles. Like we coped with the plague, we coped with COVID-19, right? Remember, it looked like the end of the world, like we would never remove those face masks anymore. But then look at us now. We are meeting together and having a conference like this and having a fun time. So yeah, I'm quite optimistic about this. So yeah, stay positive. Thank you. If you have more questions, I'll be around. I'm very happy to continue this more like philosophical, metaphysical conversations. behind the doors. So yeah, once the conference is done, happy to continue.
Sorry, because the time limit, so we will have the questions maybe outside the room after this. So let's thank again for Vitaly's great talk. Thank you.